Hey everybody, this is Commander Bacon, and today we're going to go over different types of ropes, different parts of the ropes, and how to whip the end of a rope. Stay tuned. All right, so there are two basic categories of rope. There's natural fiber rope, like this, and there's synthetic rope, like this. So synthetic rope has been around since after World War II, around World War II kind of thing. That's when they really started developing plastic, and it is a plastic type polymer kind of fiber. Natural rope has been around since man first decided to make rope out of different various plant like material. So you can make natural fiber rope out of different things, and they've made them out of different things, including hemp, cotton, flax, manila, and sisal. And I've actually made rope out of sisal, and I'll probably make a video showing how to make rope. I have a 1917 patented rope making machine, and it's pretty cool because I can get a spool of sisal rope from the lumber store, and I can make decent rope out of it. As a matter of fact, I made this rope. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? It's a little hairy looking, and we can show you how to take care of that. So some of the challenges with natural rope is swelling and weathering. It can be a problem. When the rope becomes wet, it swells. And if you tie a knot in a natural fiber rope, when it's dry and it becomes damp, say you're camping and it rains overnight and you use natural fiber rope for your guy lines for your tent, well, guess what? It's wet now, and those knots are super hard to untie. Even taut line hitch, which we're going to show you later on in another video, it's very hard to move that knot. So the other thing is sun and the elements tend to cause natural rope to become brittle and eventually break. Synthetic fiber rope is strong because its fibers run the entire length of the rope. So natural fiber ropes, because it's made of plant material, you're limited to the length of the plant material that it came from, right? So there's a bunch of different fibers that are kind of woven together, much like wool. When they spin wool into yarn, they take short little strands of wool, and through the spinning process, it weaves them together, and you get this long string, and then that string can be spun together with other strands, and then you can make yarn out of it. It's no different with rope, with the natural fiber rope. So there are different types of synthetic rope. There's nylon, polyester, and polypropylene. Nylon rope is strong, it stretches easily, and it also floats. So that would be very handy in a boating type situation, right? You wouldn't want a rope that sinks if you're using that to tie your boat to the dock. You'd want something that if it did fall, it would stay and float on top of the water. You can also use nylon rope for towing. There are better things for towing, but in a pinch, if you needed to, you could pull somebody out of a ditch or a mud hole or something like that with a strong nylon rope. Polyester rope is strong and stretches just a little. It is useful for tying down loads on trailers. And then polyethylene rope, it's not as strong as the other types of synthetic rope, and really you don't see it that often anymore, and it's not good for anything. I don't like it. So synthetic ropes come in a variety of colors too. So here's a synthetic rope. It's black. And this synthetic rope is white and red, pink, whatever you want to call it. So it's Its variations are limitless, right? And sometimes they use color markings for like coding how strong it is. You see that with a lot of the rock climbing ropes, rappelling ropes, and stuff like that. The synthetic ropes do not swell or weather. They don't have problems with that. They rarely rot or become brittle. Again, if you're like rock climbing and you have a rope rubbing over top of a rock, that can cause problems with synthetic rope. Slowly it will tear it up and destroy it and cause it to have a weak spot there. And we're going to show you later on how to deal with a weak area in your rope without cutting it, without tying it together again, or without throwing it away. So the challenge with synthetic fiber is that it is so smooth that knots tend to slip or untie on their own. Sometimes there's different ways around that when you are tying knots, and we'll get into that when we get into the knot tying. So knot tying is a very useful skill. When camping, it is used to tie tents to their stakes, tie overhead tarps to trees or whatever, and secure equipment on pickup trucks and trailers. Other activities using knots include rappelling, fishing, and lashing projects, which we'll get into lashing projects with a whole another video series. So a lot of information. So knot tying, the art of knot tying and everything came from the sailing ship days, right? And I have a big thick book. It's right there, Ashley's Book of Knots. It is an extremely informative book. It goes into a lot of detail with a lot of knots that are even just decorative. I mean, Ashley actually he went to a black tie affair and didn't have cufflinks, so he quickly tied up a set of decorative knot cufflinks, and everybody was so impressed with them that they went on and on and on about it. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with knots. I also want to talk about, there is an app on your phone, Grog's Knots. It's an animated knot tying app. It's going to go into a lot more knots than what I'm going to go through in this video series. So check that out. I'll leave a link in the description. Not a link. I'll tell you what it's about. I'll tell you the name of it, and make sure that you understand how it's spelled and everything else. So stay tuned. We're going to get into the different parts of a rope. All right, so there are 3 parts to a rope. This is the end. Pretty complicated, isn't it? And anytime you form a bend like this is the bite. Okay? And then the rest of it is just the standing part. Okay? And when we tie knots, this will be the working end. It doesn't matter which end. It's just whichever end you're working with, that'll be the working end. Okay? So when you have rope, it's really important to take good care of it so that it'll always do the job that it was designed to do, right? You always want to make sure you untie the knots from a rope after its use. Especially natural fiber rope, it can really cause a problem. A dirty rope is a weak rope. You need to make sure it's clean. You need to make sure it stays in a dry, cool room or a container. If the rope is used in salt water, it should be rinsed and dried before storage. Salt water is very corrosive. Keep the rope out of sunlight when it's not in use. Ultraviolet light will eventually damage any type of rope, natural or synthetic. So at the end of your camping season, your rope should be washed with a mild detergent and dried before storage. Okay? All right, so now we're going to learn how to whip the end of a rope. This is called whipping the rope. You don't need it for synthetic fiber, but it's easier to show it on synthetic fiber rope. Synthetic fiber rope, you do a thing called fusing the end, so you'll melt it, right? And you have to be real careful because this stuff is super hot and super sticky. So if you touch it with your hand, it'll stick to your skin and it'll burn you, okay? So anytime you fuse a rope, you need to be very, very careful. We're not going to fuse a rope at this point, but I'll give you a hint. What I like to do is once I melt it, I take my knife and just kind of shape it with my knife. The rope will not stick to the knife, so it's easy to do that, okay? Does that make sense? All right, so now we're going to get into whipping. And I typically would use a string this size, but I don't think you're going to be able to see it well in the video. So I'm going to use this bigger rope, and this is another piece of synthetic rope. Okay? So what I like to do, let's see. What I like to do is make a loop like that, have enough end sticking past this end of this rope that you can grab a hold of. See how I have the loop? And then I'm going to put my thumb right here, and I'm going to start wrapping it. And you got to wrap it tight. I don't know if it shows up well, but I'm really pulling on this smaller rope, really squeezing it, okay? Pulling and wrapping it, and I'm making sure each wrap is tight against the previous wrap, okay? And I've done this so many times, I make it look easy. And I've seen so many people struggle with this because they see me going pretty fast, so they just do this. Well, it's a mess, right, for one thing. So then what you want to do is, it'll be about, you want to go the length of about 2 times the diameter of the rope. So if the diameter rope is that, we're about 2 times right now, okay? It's nothing magical. You just need to have enough of a grip that it holds well. All right, so this last loop, I'm just going to come up through that loop, okay? And it's just sitting there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull on this. I don't know how it got back there. I'm going to pull on this, and can you see it? That loop is getting smaller. You got to still hold on to everything, keep it tight. And we'll see if this big rope will pull through. Oh, it's really tight. You can see it. It's right there. It's like watching a snake swallow a rat. So it's right there, and it wouldn't be so bad if we were using this small stuff. It'd be a lot easier. And then once after you have that, you just take your knife, and I'm not going to do it with this, but you would just slice it right there, and come over here and slice it right there. And you end up with something like this. Here's the end there, and you can't even see the other end. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, that's called whipping a rope. And that's the end of this first lesson. So I hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for the next lesson. We're going to get into tying different kinds of knots. So have a great day. So another aspect of whipping the end of the rope, the whipping is mostly for these natural fiber ropes, right? Because if you didn't whip the end of the rope, there would be nothing holding this, and it would just fray out. So it's critical for these, right? And you can see it is about 2 times, there's 1, 2 times the diameter of the rope. Maybe we'll show fusing a synthetic rope later. I don't want to get into that right now. It requires a lighter. You got to melt the end of it, and then, like I said, with a knife, you want to smooth it over and make sure it's a nice smooth end. You don't want it to be a big mushroom head on it so that it interferes when you are trying to tie knots. That's very frustrating if you ever do that. So you want the fused end to be very tight and very close to the diameter of the rope that you're fusing. So I hope this was informative. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit the like button. If you want to see more of what we're doing here, hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell. Smash the bell so that you know when a new video is uploaded. So until next time, this is Commander Bacon signing off. I'll see you.